For years, I believed the same thing almost every gardener believes, that if plants are weak, you feed them. If they grow slowly, you give them more nutrients. If the soil looks tired, you'll correct it, enrich it, fix it. That's what we're taught. That's what every label, every article, every expert seems to repeat. Feed the plant, correct the soil, push growth forward. And for a long time, I followed that logic without questioning it. I added fertilizers, amendments, boosters, corrections. Sometimes it worked for a short while. The plants looked greener, growth sped up, but something always fell off. The soil never seemed to improve. Every season, it felt like I was starting over again. And the more I tried to help, the more dependent everything became on me. At Chisomi Point, I stopped asking what the plant needed and started asking a different question. Why does healthy soil exist at all in nature without anyone feeding it? Why do forests grow year after year without fertilizer? Why does no one correct the soil in a meadow, yet plants thrive? That question changed everything, because the moment you ask it honestly, you realize something uncomfortable. Plants don't survive because someone feeds them. They survive because the system beneath them works. Here's the part most people never hear. Plants don't eat fertilizo. They don't absorb nutrients the way we imagine. They don't function like machines waiting for inputs. Plants are part of a living exchange. They trade energy for services. They produce sugars through photosynthesis. And those sugars are not just for themselves. They are released into the soil intentionally to feed microorganisms. In return, those microorganisms unlock nutrients, protect roots, improve structure, regulate moisture, and stabilize the entire system. When that exchange exists, plants don't struggle. When it's broken, nothing works for long. The tragedy is that modern gardening focuses almost entirely on bypassing that exchange. Fertilizers don't rebuild it. They replace it. They force nutrients directly into the system without requiring cooperation from life in the soil. And at first, that feels like success. Growth increases. Leaves look greener, but underneath, something critical is happening. Microorganisms stop being fed. Fungi lose their role. Bacteria populations collapse or shift. The soil becomes compacted, simplified, and dependent. It produces only when pushed. And the moment you stop pushing, everything falls apart. This is why so many gardeners feel trapped. Every year requires more inputs, more correction, more effort. The soil never improves. It only performs temporarily. That's not regeneration. That's life support. What changed everything for me was not adding something new. It was stopping something. I stopped feeding the plants. Not all at once, not recklessly, but intentionally. I stopped forcing nutrients into the system and started observing what happened when the soil was allowed to respond. And something unexpected occurred. The soil began to change on its own. At first, the change was subtle. Moisture stayed longer. The surface didn't crust as easily. The soil smelled different, richer, alive. Roots behaved differently. They explored instead of clumping. After a few weeks, structure improved. After a few months, plants no longer showed the same stress patterns. And the strangest part was this: I wasn't doing more. I was doing less. This is where most people get uncomfortable, because it sounds passive. But it's not passive at all. It's a shift in responsibility. Instead of acting as the provider, you become the protector of conditions. You stop feeding and start supporting. You stop correcting and start allowing. You stop interfering and start observing. And the soil, when given the right conditions, does the rest. The idea that soil can fix itself sounds impossible until you understand what soil actually is. Soil is not dirt. Dirt is dead. Soil is a living structure built by organisms. Every grain, every pore, every aggregate is shaped by biological activity. Fungi create networks that move water and nutrients. Bacteria regulate chemistry at microscopic levels. Larger organisms create channels, improve aeration, and transport organic matter. When these relationships exist, soil becomes resilient. It resists erosion. It regulates moisture. It buffers nutrients. It adapts. When these relationships are broken, soil becomes fragile. It compacts. It dries out. It floods easily. It requires constant correction. No fertilizer can replace those functions. It can only mask their absence. This is why feeding plants doesn't work long term. You're feeding the wrong part of the system. You're skipping the workforce and trying to do the job yourself. And no gardener, no matter how dedicated, can replace billions of microorganisms working non-stop beneath the surface. The hardest part of this realization is accepting that effort is often the problem. Overworking soil, overcorrecting, overfeeding, overmanaging. These actions come from good intentions, but they keep the system locked in. Dependency, regeneration only begins when disturbance stops. When I stopped feeding plants, I didn't abandon the garden. I changed my focus. Instead of asking what nutrient was missing, I asked what condition was broken. Was the soil exposed? Was it dry? Was it compacted? Was it constantly disturbed? Was organic matter allowed to accumulate and decompose naturally? These questions lead to very different actions. Covering the soil was one of the first changes. Bare soil is unnatural. In nature, soil is always protected. Leaves, debris, living plants, or residues shield it from sun, wind, and impact. This protection stabilizes temperature, conserves moisture, and provides continuous food for microorganisms. The moment soil stays covered, life returns. Reducing disturbance was another critical shift. Turning, digging, and breaking soil may feel productive, but it destroys structure and disrupts networks that took months or years to form. When soil is left intact, organisms rebuild complexity. Channels form, aggregates stabilize, water infiltration improves. Roots move differently. Moisture management became more important than nutrients. Life needs water to function. Dry soil cannot regenerate, no matter how much organic matter you add. But moisture doesn't mean saturation. It means balance. Covered soil holds moisture naturally, without compaction or stagnation. Organic matter stopped being an amendment and became a process. Instead of mixing things in, I allowed materials to decompose on the surface. This slow breakdown feeds organisms gradually, exactly how the system evolved to function. No spikes, no crashes, just steady input. And here's the part that surprises most people. Plants responded even before the soil looked perfect. Stress decreased. Growth became steadier. Pest pressure dropped. Disease became less frequent. This wasn't because plants were being fed more. It was because they were no longer isolated. They were plugged back into a functioning network. The idea that soil can recover on its own doesn't mean time alone fixes everything. It means that when the right conditions exist, life does what it has always done. It organizes. It balances. It repairs. Our role is not to command that process, but to stop blocking it. Many people ask how long this takes. The answer depends on how damaged the system is and how consistently conditions are protected. Some changes appear within days. Others take months. True regeneration is not fast, but it is permanent. Once the system is working, it doesn't need to be restarted every season. This is also why chasing tricks doesn't work. No single ingredient revives soil. No magic input replaces life. Branches work because they feed organisms. Liquids work because they stimulate biology. Plants work because they support exchanges. When you understand this, you stop looking for miracles and start building systems. Stopping plant feeding doesn't mean neglect. It means trusting the process more than the product. It means measuring success by resilience, not speed. It means allowing complexity to return instead of forcing simplicity. One of the biggest mistakes people make during this transition is impatience. They stop feeding, but they keep disturbing. They cover soil, but they let it dry out. They add organic matter, but they remove it too soon. Regeneration requires consistency. The system must feel safe long enough to rebuild. Another mistake is mixing industrial logic with biological systems. Using harsh inputs alongside regenerative practices confuses the system. Life thrives on stability. Sudden shocks reset progress. If the goal is recovery, actions must align with that goal. The most powerful moment in this entire process is when you realize you are no longer needed in the same way. The garden becomes quieter. Problems solve themselves. Growth feels natural instead of forced, and the work becomes lighter, not heavier. This doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you do less of the wrong things and more of the right ones. You observe, you protect, you adjust gently, and you let time do what no product ever could. The soil was never broken, it was interrupted. And the moment you stop feeding plants and start supporting life beneath them, the interruption ends. What looks like recovery is actually reconnection. What looks like soil fixing itself is life returning to work. And what looks like doing less is actually finally doing the right thing. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. Every gardening decision becomes simpler. Every problem becomes clearer. And every season builds on the last instead of erasing it. If your soil feels dead, it's not asking for fertilizer. It's asking for conditions. It's asking for time. It's asking to be left intact long enough to remember how to function. Stop feeding plants. Start supporting life. And let the soil do what it has always known how to do.